man was confused.
The film has only two characters, he and she, that they are given no names other than this is the first major sign that they are not characters in their own right, but rather archetypes for their genders. Another thing is that the film is divided into 4 chapters. In the opening scene, a man and a woman passionately make love after taking a shower. Outside, white snow is falling, and in the meantime, their infant son named Nick wakes up and climbs out of his crib to look at the snow through the open window. Unfortunately, the boy slips and falls to his death, and at the time of his fall, his parents know nothing about it and keep making love. The teddy bear in the child's hand falls to the floor and bounces off. As Chapter 1, Grief, begins, we see Nick's coffin while his parents follow behind. The man, overwhelmed with sorrow, walks ahead of his wife, who collapses in despair. The man rushes to her as the screen fades out. A month later, the man visits a hospital room to see her. The woman is struggling deeply with the incident. The man, meanwhile, appears composed as he is a therapist. As they converse, she mentions that her doctor said her grief is unusual. The man disagrees, believing she is mourning in her way. The woman still feels guilty for their son's death. In a moment of vulnerability, she breaks down and cries. Later, the man returns to the hospital and finds her upset because he has canceled her treatment with the current doctor, questioning its efficacy. She feels he is intervening unnecessarily. The man wants to assist his wife through therapy, but she argues that family members should not treat each other. Despite this, he is determined to help and decides to take control of the situation. The scene transitions to a flower pot as the man collects Nick's autopsy reports. Upon returning home, he finds her in the bathroom, holding her medications. She opens the bottle and discards all the pills. Later, she is seen crying loudly, and he comforts her, reassuring her that everything will be all right. That night, as they lie in bed, she accuses him of always keeping his distance from his family. The man asks for examples. She claims he seems indifferent to their child's death and believes his concern for her is now solely due to her being his patient.
That I'm your patient.
After this confrontation, he considers that she may want to grieve alone. He inquires about the project she was working on in the forest with Nick, asking why she abandoned her thesis. The woman responds that it seemed insignificant and that he always regarded the project as trivial. The man disagrees, but she suddenly stands up and they share a kiss as the scene transitions to a forest. We next see the woman's body parts isolated against a dark background. She awakens, breathing heavily and frightened. The man approaches her and holds her close, guiding her to breathe in and out as he counts to 5. Noticing some improvement, he encourages her to visualize something calming. The woman suddenly imagines herself in nature with her son, Nick. Eventually, she begins to regain her composure. Later that night, she awakens and attempts to initiate intimacy with him. He declines, explaining that she shouldn't engage physically with her therapist. He restrains her as she asks if he loves her. She pleads for his help, and he reassures her that he is indeed helping. The next scene shows the woman showering while he lectures her. After her bath, he sits down to make a list of her fears, but she struggles to pinpoint what terrifies her. She rushes to the bathroom, desperately trying to drink water. Losing control, she begins banging her head on the toilet, trying to end her life. The man, disturbed by the noise, pulls her out of the shower and takes her to bed. In an unplanned moment of intimacy, they start making love. Afterward, he realizes this was a mistake given their ongoing treatment. The woman again asks if he loves her, and this time he asks where she feels most afraid. She eventually admits it's the woods. The man finds this amusing since she always wanted to go there to study and work on her project. The place is called Eden. The man creates a pyramid of her fears, placing Eden in the center. The woman seizes the moment, kissing him and trying to become intimate. The man, instead of resisting, becomes aroused. They passionately make love until she accidentally bites him on the chest, ending their encounter.
I don't know.
On a train, they engage in a simple exercise where she imagines being in Eden Forest. We see her in the evening on a small bridge, walking through various places. A small cabin appears in a foggy area where she lies on the green grass. Back on the train, he reassures her that her fears can't harm her. They finally reach Eden Forest and begin their trek. Exhausted, the woman falls asleep, leaving him to explore the forest alone. He wanders around and encounters something unsettling, a lone deer in an isolated spot. The man is horrified to discover the deer has given birth to a partially formed baby. This disturbing sight sticks with him as we transition to the next chapter. Chapter 2, Pain, begins as the woman asks him if they should continue. They reach the same bridge where she starts to feel uneasy. Instead of confronting her fears, she begins to run. The man follows her and finds a small hole under a tree. He keeps walking until he finds her asleep in the cabin. That night, he goes through old photos and notices that while she is with Nick, she appears unhappy. As they sleep, acorns fall on the roof, creating disturbing sounds. In the morning, he awakens with his hand hanging out of the window. He is repulsed to find his hand covered in acorns. He snuggles back into bed and falls asleep again. Shortly after, the couple tries a new exercise as part of their treatment. The man has placed 2 stones on the grass and wants her to walk from one stone to the other. The woman struggles with the task, breathing heavily. The man helps her calm down and complete the exercise. Both seem relieved as she starts to weep with a mix of relief and joy. Suddenly, a baby bird falls from a tree and is quickly covered by ants. A falcon swoops down and grabs the bird for food. The woman witnesses this and is soon seen crying in the cabin. As they talk, she recounts an experience from when she was working on her thesis in the forest. She describes hearing Nick crying loudly, and despite searching the entire forest, she couldn't find him. Eventually, she returned and found Nick in the garage, but he wasn't crying. The woman believes it was nature that was crying. The man tries to convince her that what she hears is not real, and that her fear and blame for the place are unfounded. The woman reacts angrily, calling him arrogant.
You shouldn't have come here.
That night, she declares that nature is akin to Satan's church, and the wind is his breath. The man adds Satan to the pyramid of fears. As he starts a fire for warmth, he finds Nick's autopsy reports in his pocket. After reading the reports, he looks at her with a disturbed expression. The camera pulls back to reveal him standing outside the cabin, acorns falling around him. The woman wakes and joins him. Their conversation seems to restore their connection. However, she soon gets up and leads him into the forest, showing him that she is no longer afraid. She places her hand in the hole and walks across the bridge, claiming she is cured. Seeing his reaction, she becomes upset, feeling that he is not pleased with her. Leaving him alone in the forest, the bushes begin to rustle. The man investigates and encounters a fox consuming itself. Shortly after, it says, "Chaos reigns."
Chaos reigns.
In Chapter 3, Despair, the man stands motionless as rain pours down on him. Back at the cabin, he decides to explore an upstairs room. With a small lantern, he examines the room and discovers disturbing old paintings and drawings depicting the torture of women by men, illustrating the historical dominance of men over women. His attention is drawn to a diary titled "Genocide." Inside, her writing becomes increasingly erratic. Suddenly, large trees begin to fall. In the next exercise, the man pretends to be various things that scare her while she tries to remain rational. He starts by embodying nature. The woman asks what nature wants. Nature replies that it wants to harm her and even kill her. The woman struggles to understand this, but nature insists that its essence is pervasive, existing even within humans. The conversation leads to the woman discussing her thesis, which posits that human nature is inherently evil. She argues that women are unable to control their bodies because nature imposes its will upon them. The man becomes frustrated, saying that she has become consumed by her project and has embraced these old negative beliefs rather than rejecting them. He expresses his inability to continue working under these conditions. Distressed, she runs outside naked and finds a spot beneath a tree. Attempting to pleasure herself, he discovers her and joins her for another intimate encounter right beneath the tree. Suddenly, various hands emerge from the tree roots as they continue. The man, upset, tells her he can't continue if she doesn't cooperate. He explains that many women were killed in the past, but they were not inherently evil. Despite his efforts, she remains indifferent. Later, she finds the autopsy reports and inquires about their contents. We flash back to the man discovering that Nick's legs were deformed. He shows her a photo of Nick, explaining that the incorrectly worn shoes caused Nick's leg deformities, which contributed to his lack of balance. We see a flashback of the woman trying to put shoes on Nick while he cries. Overcome with emotion, she suddenly attacks him, accusing him of trying to abandon her. As they struggle, he loses consciousness. The woman, in a fit of creativity, drills a hole in his lid. The man, still unconscious, doesn't feel the pain. When he wakes, he finds a heavy tool lodged in his leg. He tries unsuccessfully to unscrew it and then crawls into the hole. The woman, standing above, screams and attempts to locate him. Inside the dark hole, he lights a match and sees a bird. To silence the bird, he hits it with a stone. The woman eventually finds him and starts digging above the hole. As we get to Chapter 4, The Three Beggars, the woman apologizes as she pulls him out, but he insists she must remove the tool from his leg. She searches for a wrench but can't find it. They slowly make their way back to the cabin. The man questions whether she wants to kill him, but she says she doesn't intend to kill him just yet. She's saving him for the three beggars. When they arrive, she'll have to kill him. She removes her pants and takes a pair of scissors. A flashback shows her noticing Nick climbing a table, choosing not to intervene and allowing him to die. Overcome with guilt, she cuts off one of her most sensitive parts. In agony, she leaves the cabin and sits alone on the grass. The man, seeing her, experiences a disturbing dialogue and screams. Soon, a fox with a ringing bell appears in the room. The man, realizing something is beneath him, starts breaking the floor. A crow flies out, and we see a deer, a fox, and a crow gathered near her. They are referred to as the three beggars. The crow is the symbol of despair, the deer is the symbol of grief, and the fox is the symbol of pain. The man finds a wrench beneath the floorboards and begins to free his leg. His wife, still asleep, remains unaware. As he makes progress, she wakes and attacks him with scissors. After a fierce struggle, he finally manages to free himself. Consumed by pain and rage, he chokes her until she dies. After witnessing her death, he burns her body on a pyre. The man limps from the cabin and eats wild berries as the three beggars look on, now translucent and glowing. Reaching the top of a hill, under a brilliant light, he watches in awe as hundreds of women in antiquated clothes come towards him with their faces blurred as they walk past him through the forest. Did this story spook you out? Let us know in the comments below. For more horror movie recaps, subscribe to our channel and we will see you in the next one. Fear awaits you.